Hello everybody. This is another video on rewriting tips. This is rewriting tips for sentences. And when you do the rewriting, of course, you need to rewrite once for content. That's what we talked about in the paragraphs, right? Making the paragraphs more full and more complete. And then secondly, you need to rewrite to strengthen the sentences. Most students are panicked about their grammar. Stop. Stop being panicked. Your grammar is fine. It's a myth that you have to have perfect grammar. Instead of perfect grammar, what you really should have is a clever set of tricks, if you will, writing tricks, but let's call them techniques. Techniques sounds better than tricks, that will improve the quality of your sentences. What looks weak at sentences is not mistaken grammar. What looks weak at sentences is really a sense that the sentences are too much like spoken English and not like written English, but also that the sentences themselves have not been rewritten enough to make them really strong. So here's my tips, 6 tips, and I'll show you examples of these, but let me talk about these first. First, don't use I too much. If you use I or we or I think, it's okay, but there's no need to use that. There's better ways to express your ideas, and I'll show you some examples in a minute. If you use I, sometimes it's great because you use yourself as an example. But I think comes from Nihongo no to omoimasu. To omoimasu at the end of a sentence sounds great in Japanese, but in English, I think at the beginning tends to weaken the sentence, right? So I'll give some examples about that as we go through. Don't use it is, there is, that is, this is, they are. Boring. It, there, this, that. Boring. Is, are. Boring, boring, boring. 3. Be careful of weak, vague words. Bad, good. Even words like society, right? Also be careful of words like sometimes, somewhere. Those weak words are really unclear, and they are not words that help make your meaning any clearer, right? They're vague. 4, use good subjects at the beginning of the sentence. Try to put in things like ideas or characters or concepts or even the title of the work. 5, use strong verbs, active verbs. I'll give you some examples in a minute. And 6, vary the length of sentences inside your paragraph. Some long, some short. You don't have to have all long sentences or all short sentences. Really, you should have a kind of mixture of those. Okay? So let's look at some examples. These are some examples which come from your papers. So be patient. Don't be embarrassed. These are perfectly good first draft sentences. Okay? Now, this is a good sentence. Now, let me show you what my rewrite of that is. Okay? And the rewrite of that is a little bit stronger for a lot of different reasons. Okay? First, I consider. Okay? No need for that. Okay? 5 big points. Good. Some. Bleh. Okay. These are. Bleh. Boring. Gender, that should be small, I think. But the 5 points are excellent, right? These 5 are really, these are fantastic. So let's put those kind of at the center of what you want to say. So let's change I consider, take that out, and write it this way. These movies and stories criticized, right? So now criticize is the first verb. Criticize is a great verb. Consider, that's okay too, right? But let's put these movies and stories criticize modern life in American society. That's your idea. This criticizes that. Great. Then you could put this, especially, or in 5 distinct areas. Bonk. Okay? 1, gender issues. 2, bad conditions at workplaces. 3, money problems. 4, the difficulty of changing one's character. Okay? Wait, how many choices is that? Or is there one more? Anyway, I guess that's 4, maybe. Sorry, I can't count. Or anyway, we'll leave it at that. 1, 2, 3, 4, right? Now, this is a fantastic idea. The whole idea is great, super clear. But this way of writing it is better. Let me read both for you so you get a sense of how it sounds. Example 1. Then I consider about 5 big points with some movies and stories. These are criticism of modern life in American society, gender issue, bad condition of workplace, money problem, and changing. Okay? So we changed it a little bit here. These movies and stories criticize, let's read this, how the rewrite. These movies and stories criticize modern life in American society in 4 distinct areas: gender issues, bad conditions at workplaces, money problems, and the difficulty of changing one's character. Okay? So that, I think, is 4 great points. And again, it doesn't matter if it's 5 or 4. The idea is really a fantastic idea, okay? But the way of putting the subject, verb, idea, expansion, this makes a stronger sentence, okay? Let me take another example here. This is another example from, let me put that up here. Get this out of the way. They're not nice to him because he lost everything. Totally vague, okay? Now, let's rewrite that and expand it a little bit, right? Now, we're looking at they are. Most boring beginning of any sentence. Nice. What does nice mean? Bad, good, nice. Him, who, everything, right? Well, everything is vague too. So let's rewrite that, baby. Okay, his former friends, and I think it's Nettie, right? Nettie's former friends treat him with patience, but actually look down on him, okay? They are not nice to him. That's perfectly good English, correct grammar. But here we have 2 things, right? Treat him, look down on, right? Now that's a lot more complicated and a lot more interesting. And then you say why. Because he lost what? His former job, family, and home. Then we can say the most important parts of life, in their opinion, right? So we get an expansion of this idea to make it a little bit stronger. We replace the vague words. Him is vague, lost everything, all of that's vague, okay? Ready for another example? Isn't this fun? Okay, here's another example. Furthermore, compare those characters. There are many similarities and differences. Firstly, the differences. Well, this sentence you could use in almost any paper that you would write anytime, anywhere, ever, right? There are many similarities and differences. Of course, that's the way the world is, right? We say that's what makes a horse race, right? The horses are all different. They're all the same, but they're all different. Well, yes, that's interesting, but we have to be more specific. So let's look at this rewrite, okay? The differences between the characters, okay, that's better than this, are connected to gender, that's specific, but also to the ability to look at the hard reality of life. The characters also differ in how and how long they escape into fantasy. Okay? Now, this is really telling something important, right? The characters, how are they different, right? How are they the same? How are they different, right? Now, you might say something like this at first: the characters all seem the same, but in fact, their differences are large, okay? Let's take that sentence and put it up here. Okay, now that's a good beginning. You say the same, but mostly we're going to look at the differences here. Okay, so that's how that works. Let me give you another example. How's that? Okay, as long as we're rocking and rolling here, let me give you another example. Okay, here's a sentence which is a good sentence, not a bad sentence in any way. However, when the life is too hard, they escape from the real life and try to see the fantasy world, to forget how hard life they had. For characters in famous stories, it is the same for a few reasons. Okay? Is boring. Try to see, okay. It is, yeah, same. A few reasons, vague. Okay? Now, let's take that idea. The idea is great. The idea is a good insight into what's happening, and I think it's very clever. But what we want to do is get the sentence up to the level of thinking. Here's what I rewrote. However, when life becomes too hard to endure, okay, is too hard to endure, they, people, need to escape into a fantasy world to get away from their suffering, confusion, or pain. Okay? So this tells the specific things they're escaping. Okay? Many characters in famous stories. Okay? So this is maybe about the same. Okay? But let's look how we change it. We get rid of this it is. Okay? Many characters in famous stories, that's the subject of the sentence. Now, the verb we use is escape. Which is better, escape or is? In the same way, for the same reasons, a little more complicated, the same, right? But the stories show this escape in an ironic way. Okay? That's a little bit better than for a few reasons. So we get some reasons, we get this idea of how they escape and what that means. Okay? So these are perfectly good sentences. Okay? Let's take another example. Okay? Ready? Firstly, I will write about character. Let's make that small by using the story of Kugelmass. He could teach us that humans are really ironic and they contradict themselves. Great. Okay? Now, let's change it just a little bit and take that I out of there because it's fine, but we can really think about making that a little bit better, right? Kugelmass is an intriguing character who shows, okay? Now, we used is again, which I said is a weak verb, but it's not so bad here, right? Kugelmass is an intriguing character. Intriguing means interesting, right? Who shows that humans are really ironic in the way they contradict themselves, okay? Now, in this case, my sentence is shorter than this one, right? I combine the two sentences together, and we get rid of that by switching things around. Kugelmass, Kugelmass, character, character, adding intriguing, okay? Shows, teaches, shows, okay, we could say teaches if you want to. Teaches us, okay, that humans are really ironic. How are they ironic? In the way they contradict themselves. Okay? So that's not that different from this, but what we really do is have a kind of stronger, quicker, single sentence instead of a double sentence. Okay? Let's take another example. And probably getting sick of this. What are we on? Example 6? Okay. Let me just do one or two more to give you some ideas so that you'll see how to rewrite the sentences. Do you have to do this for all your sentences? Yes. But as you practice this, it gets easier and easier. Okay? Okay. From these thoughts, this essay is going to think about the better way to connect with fantasy world. Perfectly good sentence, needed the is, but let's think about it this way. These films explore the dangers. Okay, now that's interesting, as well as the importance of fantasy or of a fantasy world for the characters, and suggest better ways to connect to the fantasy world. Okay? Now, this is a little bit better because this essay is going to think about that's pretty boring language. That's all dead language. Okay? Instead of that, we have this sentence. These films explore the dangers. Wow. Okay? This essay is going to think about. This is textbook. This is what you learn in high school and Ichininen say. It's like textbook English, right? Textbook English is dead English, dead language. So you want to make your sentences alive. These films explore the dangers as well as the importance, okay? Now, the idea of this sentence and the idea of this sentence is exactly the same, right? But what you get is a more vibrant, more kind of alive style of English. The sentences are different. The verbs are better. They're active verbs. The subjects are there as well. Okay, the subjects are better. Okay. Now let's take one more example. Last one, I promise. Don't fall asleep. This is really helpful. Be patient. Okay, here's another example. As it is showed in various ways in the films, it plays important. What does important mean? Roles in your life. Who's your? In this report, I analyze the meanings of escapism and what the films teach us. This is correct, grammatically correct sentence. But let's switch it around just a little bit, okay? As it is shown, the meanings of escapism are complex in the modern world. But we, okay, I said up here, don't use we too much, but if you use it sometimes, it's okay. But we must understand them because the films also show that some escapism is necessary in the modern world, okay? And maybe we don't want to do that twice, so why don't I take that out? While too much can be dangerous, okay? So the meanings of escapism, but you want to say that some escapism is necessary, but some is dangerous, okay? Now those 2 points, necessary and dangerous, it tells us a little bit what the meanings are, okay? You can say, I'm going to tell you the meaning of escapism, but tell me, right? Tell me directly. So if you look at this sentence, it is, I analyze. This one puts me inside the idea immediately. So I'm thinking about it. I'm not thinking about you, the writer. I'm thinking about the idea, right? And so this kind of sentence puts the reader, in this case me, right inside the ideas. Okay? So these are some examples of how to rewrite the sentences. You especially need to rewrite the first and last sentence of every paragraph. That's really important. When you write, you can make some long sentences, some short ones. Okay? Verbs, try to that connects to number 2. Use strong verbs, use active verbs, okay? Good subjects of the sentence, don't use I, it is, there is, okay? Be careful of weak or vague words, bad, good, sometimes, occasionally, really. Those are words which don't have much meaning. Don't use it is, there is too much, and don't use I, we, or I think too much, but sometimes is okay. All right? When you rewrite your sentences, do it with a lot of energy, do it with a lot of passion. For me, I like to print everything out, rewrite on the paper, then retype it. But it doesn't matter how you rewrite, as long as you do rewrite. When you do it, you'll find that you learn a lot. So rewriting is not, the purpose of rewriting is not just to make the teacher happy, to not make your grammar perfect. The purpose of rewriting is this: to make your ideas stronger, to make yourself stronger.